So when I was in first grade, my parents went to Pioneer Conference where my first grade teacher told my parents that I was having difficulties reading and that I was far behind the other kids in my class. So she recommended that they put me on Hooked on Phonics. I don't know how many people remember that, but I just remember the commercials for it, like call 1-800 Hooked on Phonics. Either way, my parents didn't end up doing that, but they were quite mad at me. The teacher said that I also stared at the clouds a lot. I also broke my arm in first grade, so I missed a lot of school, and even when I was back in school, they had moved on to certain things that I had already missed, and since I broke my right arm, I couldn't write anything. Thus, I really struggled with my penmanship as well. But my parents didn't speak any English. There was no one really there to read stories to me or help me with my homework, and I didn't really have anyone to help me with like reading comprehension, which is something that I really struggled with. I would read something and I wouldn't fully grasp all the information. Fast forward to third grade, at some point somewhere between that time, I did learn how to read, and I started to really love reading. I would read out loud. I would volunteer for it because I loved putting little voices to each of the characters and kind of acting it out and stuff. So I would read stories like Rainbow Fish and The Giving Tree and Where the Sidewalk Ends, which are both like poetry books. Those were really fun, and those really kept my interest. At some point, Harry Potter came into the picture, as I'm sure many people experienced the same thing. Harry Potter was amazing. It was such a rich and wonderful world, and I absolutely devoured those books. I didn't get to read them one after the other. There were some gaps, a couple years in between each ones, because I couldn't get them anywhere. My school didn't have them, my library didn't have them at the time, and there was no bookstores near me, at least in the neighborhoods around me. So I remember being really frustrated at some point and getting spoiled on a death that occurs in the 6th book, The Half-Blood Prince. And fast forward to high school, everyone started talking about Twilight. It was a very popular trilogy at the time. Breaking Dawn didn't come out yet, so everyone was carrying those books, and you know, it's like the apple and stuff. And I remember asking my best friend at the time what was up with that, and she was like, oh, it's a book about, it's like a romance book with vampires. And at that point I was just like, what does that even mean? Because to me, the concept of vampires was synonymous with antagonists in novels. I didn't picture them ever being like a romantic figure, but sure enough it was. And I started reading the books, and we all became obsessed with it, and it like took over the school, and the films came out, of course. I didn't like Breaking Dawn. I never did, movie or novel. So after the Twilight thing, or kind of in between the Twilight thing, my best friend who recommended Twilight to me, she introduced me to the Mortal Instruments, and she let me borrow City of Bones, which was so amazing. Fell in love. I wanted to be like Clary, and I wanted a boyfriend like Jace, and I really enjoyed that trilogy. Or at the time it was a trilogy. At the time Fallen Angels wasn't out yet, and right after I finished City of Glass, I think, City of Fallen Angels came out. So that was awesome. I didn't have to wait at all for it. But that really that made me take a step into the YA genre, and it was a lot of fun. Like, it was just cool to get lost in a book. I was having a lot of personal problems at that time, so to just completely forget about everything and just focus on this magical story was a really nice escape. Fast forward to now, the college years, I still try to read as much as possible. I definitely stepped out of the YA genre, and I hope to do some videos about that, but it's been fun. I still love to read. I really don't have as much time, as I'm sure a lot of us can relate to that. It's like the desire to want to read, but just not actually doing it for whatever reason. I'm currently reading Game of Thrones, which is a big undertaking because it is such a large series and all the books are so many pages long. But I'm powering through. We'll see what happens, and I will see you guys very soon with another video. Bye!